Just because there is no press conference schedule doesn't mean television's Adam King is out of questions for Ohio State. In fact, he might have more than ever.
I've got a lot of questions.
And it's still a Talkin' Tuesday with or without a press conference. He is the one and only television's Adam King of 10 TV. I am merely Austin Ward of the Austin and Berm Show on the Beat, which is brought to you by the Waterworks. And so where would you like to begin, Adam? Because you said you have a lot of questions.
I do.
We won't get answers today.
And the first question I have is, where do you get off in the comments telling me I moved too much during these conversations?
You went to journalism school, and they teach you that in the television factory.
I will say, last week, I was very stressed about timing. It was the number one liked comment, so I got to give it a shout out. It had like 15 people were like, what is going on with this guy? I was stressed about timing, so I was trying to see the clock, and I literally was watching it back, and I'm like doing this the whole time. I'm like, hi, Austin, how are you? Like, I'm getting seasick watching myself. That's my big and only question. So thank you for watching.
That was more of a comment.
Oh, that's right.
Do you have anything about Ohio State football?
I do. My next question is, where do you get off thinking that in any way the Big Ten championship can continue?
Okay.
And in any way these conference championships can continue. Indiana, congratulations. Fernando Mendoza did not get hurt. But we, sitting next to each other, almost saw the end of, I don't know if they would have finished the game. I think Ryan would have seen that and said, well,
now we're going to keep Julian saying over here.
They're going to say over here. I was the biggest proponent. You heard me all last week. I think I was yelling it at people that this is such an important game. It mattered zero. And looking back at
definitely mattered to Indiana that they won.
It's a lot of confetti they were throwing in the air. It didn't matter. Now, I'm not saying that because Ohio State lost. I'm saying that because in retrospect, they dropped one spot. They probably got a better draw. They don't have to face Oregon or Texas Tech, or Oklahoma, or Alabama. I'm trying to think of the other one.
There you go. We got there.
I got there. I just think they 100%, it didn't hit me until I was standing in the tunnel on Saturday night that you cannot play this game after the Michigan game unless it actually means something, unless it carries the weight of the world on its shoulders. If it is a 14 playoff, which it's weird that we have somehow gone from a world where in the 14 playoff, if you lost the Big Ten championship, you were out. The only reason Ohio State got into the 14 playoff in 2014 was because of the Big Ten championship. And we were saying to Baylor and TCU, well, if you had a Big Ten championship game that year, or Big 12, you'd be in. It didn't matter at all. The energy pregame, there were a lot of distractions last week. We talked a lot about it on Friday, but I think none of us could have comprehended just how much the Buckeyes poured into that Michigan game. And then it felt like they were trying to manufacture energy on Saturday. And so my first question is more an overarching question for the college football world. And it's, where do we go from here? Because you cannot continue to have this weird weekend to end the regular season where teams are playing, the Heisman winner is getting destroyed on the first play, and then it doesn't matter when we all wake up Sunday and nobody cares.
Oh, well, now Indiana's number 1 and Ohio State's number 2. They just traded places.
There you go.
And it's not just what you said about the rivalry games at the end of the year. Obviously, Ohio State's is different with Michigan and the physicality of that game compared to Indiana and Purdue. I'm not saying that to bring up excuses. I'm just saying once you turn the page from that 2-conference championship week, it's the other part of the calendar that then became a huge distraction for Ohio State. It wasn't just the emotional and physical toll that they poured into winning the game for the first time, obviously, in 6 years, but then for the coaching staff last week, managing Brian Hartline's departure, having Penn State coming after Matt Patricia, dealing with everything that was going on with negotiations to keep the signing class together and to land Chris Henry Jr. on Friday.
That went all the way till noon on Friday.
All the way up till Friday. So all of that stuff, that mounted. And when you talk about manufacturing the energy or the focus, the routine was so out of whack.
It's crazy.
And you and I were both in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center on Sunday. And I think Ohio State fully recognized that. In the moment, they think that they're doing the best job that they possibly can to keep their focus on Saturday night and going to Lucas Oil Stadium and beating Indiana. But when you look at it with the benefit of hindsight, it's no, they did not pour the same level of energy, preparation, practice, whatever, game planning into it that they did for every other game. I think that showed. Might be difficult for you or me to prove that because we're not in there every second of every day. But the people that were involved on Sunday were looking at it and saying, that can't happen again. They didn't do the best job. But some of the stuff is going to linger on. When we talk about questions like, well, Brian Hartline, as we speak, is still like going back and forth down to Tampa and South Florida.
So like, take it.
So that stuff is like pretty pressing still.
I don't think we've ever had a Talking Tuesday with more questions and more monumental questions. I mean, I've seen a lot of the fan base almost turn on Brian Hartline. You can't do that. The guy gave the program everything he had for the last, I don't know, his whole career.
His whole life.
Yeah, has been about Ohio State. He has many times turned down jobs to stay here and mentor the stars that are now in the NFL. But you can admittedly say Saturday did not work. And in the modern world of college football, he's not taking over. He didn't go to USF to go 7-5 and call it a day. He's trying to build a program that wins the AAC, if that's the conference they still play in, and a program that is a tier that you think of in the back of your mind when you think of the group of five. With that, this is the most crucial part of his entire coaching tenure.
Yeah.
He's building it all right now.
That's right.
While also Ohio State is chasing the most important 3 games in the history of Buckeye football. You know what's really hard to win? A national title. You know what's even harder? To win back-to-back. You have to win the first one. They did that. Now they need those next 3 games. Everybody more locked in than they have ever been. And it's not a fault of Brian Hartline's. I liked what Ryan said, not on Sunday, to following the recruiting presser that turned into the Brian Hartline presser. He said he's not mad at Hartline. He's just the timing is awful.
He's mad at the college football calendar.
He's mad at the college football calendar. He's mad at just the sport itself right now. And I think if I'm the coach, I would say, Brian, I appreciate everything you've done for this program. You have meant the absolute world to us. You have given us more than we could ever imagine. Why don't, and I like the idea of almost just saying, hey, if you want to stick around, you can gladly stick around, but I'm gonna take over here. I'm gonna go back to what I did for the longest time with this program because I'm gonna be here 7 days a week, 24 hours. The man didn't sleep Sunday night.
Yeah.
And so it just doesn't, it's not possible. You can't be 2 places at one time, and that's no fault of anybody's, but I think it's time for Ohio State. And my biggest question is, here's your lie detector, Ryan Day, because I don't ever think we'll get the true answer, but what does this next month look like?
This is a great lie detector question.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the only way that you would get a true answer. And Ryan Day's the one who has to make the final call. He's the one who knows best. He's earned the benefit of the doubt. He just won a national championship. People that, if they were still remaining on the fence because the rivalry is so important, he just erased that from the ledger and won some gold pants a couple weeks ago. I think he's fully earned the ability to make all those decisions. And it's not easy because of everything that you said about Brian Hartline as a player, paying his dues and rising the ranks in the coaching profession, ascending now to the offensive coordinator spot, everything he did as a recruiter, everything that he's done as a developer. You want to be able to see this thing through all the way to the finish line. But, what we saw on Saturday, I think, was a team that succumbed to those disasters and maybe the double duty that Brian Hartline is having to juggle right now. We said this last week, Adam, that Tom Herman did it and it was successful. Ohio State won a national championship. Luke Fickell tried it a couple years later. I don't think the defense was necessarily the problem, but it didn't work as well for him when he was going back and forth between Cincinnati. This is a different time period. And maybe, I don't even think that we underestimated how difficult it was going to be. But what 11 years ago Tom Herman did was a 2-game playoff. In between, they had the long stretch there after winning and beating Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game. But there wasn't a transfer portal. There wasn't NIL. There wasn't free transfers. There was,
he's not building a program
and hiring a coaching staff, hiring a support staff, all the things that are required. It's not just even the 10 countable coaches that you have to put in place. It is everything else. It is your PR machine. It is your strength coach. It is your general manager. It's how you're going to acquire talent. Like it is such a complicated job. And Brian Hartline is doing it for the first time. And I'd love for him to be able to finish it the way he wants to. I just think it's going to be really challenging. And if that means, and I don't know, I'm just speculating, that Brian Hartline needs to maybe take a little bit step back, or Ryan Day needs to step in and do more of the offensive game planning. Brian Hartline could still call plays given the way that the structure is built and the way Ohio State manages a week-to-week collective game planning. But, and I think this happened even a year ago, that Ryan Day took on a more active role even when Chip Kelly was around. So now that signing day is in the past for Ohio State, Ryan Day has a little bit more free time available to him. The portal's not open yet. I don't believe he's going to be replacing Brian Hartline and making a hire at this stretch. I think that's going to wait till either further down into January or maybe even after the playoff is done completely. So, there's a way to maneuver this that allows them both to do it, but it's still going to mean that Brian Hartline has to not sleep for the next 6 weeks.
I noticed on Saturday that Keenan Bailey was one step behind Ryan Day the entire day.
He was, yeah.
I have never seen him do that. I don't know.
I haven't either.
I think I asked it. Like, has anybody ever noticed? Because you don't notice things until you do. And that felt like a guy that knew that what's to come in the next 23 days, 22 days is going to be him taking on a massive role. And that's the guy you circle right there. You star him and you say Keenan Bailey becomes the centerpiece, non-Ryan Day-wise, of this offense. The other thing that I think creates such chaos is the word that I've used, is like, it's not this, and we don't want to get to this situation, but if the problem right now was Matt Patricia took a job, you're like, well, the defense is still, pretty good. Like, they look good. I trust him. Like, the problem is the offense. The defense, and this is, I don't know who this is a question for. This is a question for people who are in my mentions on Twitter. Why are you attacking the Buck? I understand Jermaine Matthews made there were some moments he'd like to have back. They gave up 13 points to the number one scoring offense in the country. That should win every Big Ten championship game ever. It's not about the defense. So the problem isn't that it's like, his mind's elsewhere and we're trying to balance all that. The problem is you've got to get this offense fixed, and the guy that needs to be fixing it is on a plane in South Florida. Again, no fault of his own, but that's the world we live in. And so I don't know. I guess I would be curious for the players too. Like, I would love to ask the players, like, how odd, how difficult is it to have a coach here one day teaching you something, and then next day you've got another question and he's not there.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be the challenge. And I think that we could see a path forward where everyone gets what they want, and Brian Hartline gets to coach at his alma mater all the way through the college football playoff and win another national championship and give South Florida exposure at the same time. I think we can all see that. Is that actually what's best for everybody involved? That's the question. I don't have the answer, and you don't have the answer. And Ryan Day, I think he didn't have to make a definitive call on that one way or another on Sunday or even throughout this whole week. With Ohio State trying to get healthy and pulling back, and then having more attention on, ramping back up practice next week, there's an opportunity where everyone can take a deep breath and think about what is actually best for this. And it's not going to be up for us to decide. And I know that Ohio State, people outside the Woody, Ohio State fans, those of us that cover the team, we'd love immediate answers to everything. Who's Ryan Day going to hire to replace Brian Hartline? Is this officially done? Can they give Matt Patricia his extension? Can they lock all that up in place? What positions do they need in the transfer portal? Some of that stuff will be handled this week when they're not, practicing every day, when they have this stretch to decompress. But, in terms of what are you going to do for who's going to call 3rd and 4 against Texas A&M or Miami, I don't know that we're going to get any clearer picture on that right now. But that's why it's on a Talking Tuesday question.
Well, it's crazy that you say that, because that's the situation. But I don't know that they had an answer on Saturday.
No, that's
and I think that's, like, when you just said the 3rd and 4, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, imagining.
Well, what about 3rd and 1 from the 9?
Yeah, here's your next question. Why are there so many tight ends on the field? Well, I do not claim to be smarter than any of the coaching staff. They are geniuses. They won a national title. They put together an amazing offense. I just would love to get the thought process behind everywhere you look, I don't think the word 12 personnel has been, or 13 personnel has been used more on Twitter and social media and in press conferences than it has in the last, it doesn't, you cannot take the best 2 players in college football off the field in the most critical times in a game. And then this is a sidebar question, because this is an actual question that I'd like to know. Will we from here on out see Lincoln Kienholz run the QB sneak? I don't care that the other team then would know it's a QB sneak. Because
it doesn't have to be a QB sneak. They've done other things with Lincoln Kienholz.
Yes, but think about this. Philadelphia Eagles, they get down to the 1-yard line.
Uh-huh.
At no point in your mind have you ever gone, boy, I bet they hand it to Saquon. You know what's coming, but they still can't stop it. Run Lincoln out there. Julian is an amazing quarterback. That is not his strength. You have a guy, I don't know, Lincoln's 6'8", but like, get him under, he's not actually 6'8". Get him under center.
He's larger than Julian Sand.
He's a large man that's built like, whoo. And
he's like, what now?
Yeah. I mean, he's an athlete. Get him under center and have him just go. You need a yard.
It doesn't. Yes, I completely agree.
I was going to say he's built like, and I was going to say his weight, but I don't want to like overweight him. That's not nice.
No, that wouldn't be fair.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be nice to him.
Yeah.
He is strong. He's a dual threat weapon. He's big. He can certainly execute a quarterback sneak, but he does. Ohio State has also shown that there are other ways to use him this year in that package. Yeah. There's been quarterback power. There's been play action. They've trusted him to throw. So even if you put him out there, that doesn't by default mean that it has to be a sneak. You could start him in shotgun, and then you could alter, and you can element of surprise. You could run the sneak with
the third tight end
with multiple wide receivers on the field. You could also leave them out there for that. You don't even have to be in 14 personnel to run the quarterback sneak. So I know that I'm not saying anything that you disagree with, and I'm agreeing with you that you can use Lincoln to accomplish that. And I don't think that means it's a knock on Julian Sand either. He does a lot of things exceptionally well, but in the last 2 games, they were both hardware games. Mm-hmm. They've tried to run sneaks with him. And one, yes, the field was a little bit slick in the snow, but he lost his footing. His knee went down.
Yeah.
He tried it again. It was a much it's more secure turf.
It's a weird field.
But the knee went down again.
Yeah.
So the way that he executes the sneak, he's just not necessarily built for that. And I know that
he's not Will Howard.
He's not.
Will Howard. This is. I didn't mean to interrupt
you. But even with Will Howard, you didn't necessarily always have to get under center and sneak. If you think about the 4th and 3 against Texas in the Cotton Bowl, you can run them other ways.
One of my favorite lines from Justin Fry, former Ohio State offensive line coach, is last year. I think it was when we were at Wrigley. They were running a QB sneak in practice, before the game, and he goes 10 yards, 10 yards. And I'm like, what do you want 10 yards? He goes, our goal this year is on one QB sneak to get 10 yards on a play.
Yeah.
That is not the mindset anymore. You can't do that. The goal now is to get 1 yard.
Yeah.
And so, but more overarching, we saw what Lincoln can do, and it's worked. So why, when they ran the 4th down plays against Michigan, Lincoln came in. I don't know if you saw this on the broadcast, but Lincoln, halfway on the field, they pulled him back off.
Yep.
Then that was the 3rd down. 4th down, almost all the way to the huddle, they pulled him back off. We did not see him one time against Indiana. So they're obviously not saving things because we saw a triple pass. So I don't understand. It worked, and then we didn't see it in the biggest moments. Maybe it's the idea you don't want to take your best player off the field, but
they're already doing that.
Well, that's right, Jeremiah. You don't take your star quarterback off the field. That was the most baffling thing. There were a lot of baffling things on Saturday.
And I think, look, even if you're just going through this in the pecking order, you look at the snap count on Saturday and the conversation. This is not just about the red zone. The usage of the tight ends, Bennett Christian had more snaps on Saturday than Brandon Ennis.
That can't happen.
I don't think that that's a world that Ohio State needs to be living in. And I have talked openly, and I appreciate what Bennett Christian provides the team. But, if you're comparing the two and the value and the explosiveness of the offense, I think there's a pretty clear gap between what Brandon Ennis can give and what stress that puts on a defense, compared to Bennett Christian. Again, with all due respect to what both players are bringing to the table. Jeremiah and Carnell are both elevated above that, but back to, I know that people are saying, well, you can just run the sneak on third down, and Julian has been effective in that in other games. That's been Berm's argument. He said that on Saturday night. He's like, they
just do it twice.
Well, no. Well, hopefully you don't have to do it twice. But on 3rd and 1, they might not be as expecting a sneak. And if it's obvious that it's going to happen, that's where my issue comes in.
Yeah,
like,
then you got
if it's Julian, that's where it's going sideways.
Yeah, that's a good point. But
we've also been saying that about the red zone, like literally all year.
Well, I thought it was interesting. Ryan called it scabs. It did feel like this was a lot of what we worried about all year. But it was like 10 times the degree. Because it clearly, at no point on Saturday did I look out there and think, man, Indiana's just a really good football team that Ohio State's not as good as. It felt like Indiana's playing really well. Ohio State is playing horrendous. And they lost by 3. It's a good place to be.
Yeah.
To lose to the number 1 seed in the college football playoff by 3, playing far not even your worst game of the year. Like, I said this yesterday, and I said, it's great to see that they played so bad and we're down by 3. And Ryan said as much, and somebody said, well, yeah, what do you want him to say? They played their best game. There is a world where you play that game and you play well and Indiana plays well and you lose. And that is 10 times more concerning, because then you go into the playoff and you're like, well, that's who they are. And they didn't execute, and it's going to be a tough road. That was not who they are. But in order to figure out who they are, they have got to just, I know everybody, and it's not this easy. But you look at what they did against Tennessee, and you look at what they did against Oregon, and just flipping that script. You talked about the gas pedal. That was, you opened the notebook with nothing happened. They pressed the gas and nothing happened. Yeah. And that's accurate. But I don't think it's for lack of ability to do that. I think it's for lack of what happened throughout the week. It seemed like a team. Obviously, the players gave it their all. They obviously practiced. But it felt just discombobulated is another word I used. And I just hope over the next 20 days that there are a lot of answers inside the Woody that we never know, because they got a lot of questions right now themselves.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
And they need to get those answered in a hurry so that they're sole focus. Because the one thing that was nice about the playoff last year, all they cared about was football. Think about it, there was not one outside thing other than winning a football game.
Right.
Tennessee, Oregon, all the way through. It's got to be the same way here. And if that, the defense played phenomenal. Anybody that's questioning the defense, I think you need to reassess where things went wrong on Saturday.
That was not where it went wrong.
And then this is a serious question, and I'll say, and I'm not afraid to say it, if you are messaging horrible things to college football players, that is awful. If you're commenting on Instagram posts of kickers because they missed a field goal, that is not what being a fan is supposed to be. But at some point, you do have to have a conversation about the kicking game. Yeah. You have to have a conversation about trusting your kicker, and that's not disrespectful to say. It's not. There was a 27-yard field goal that, if that's the end of the season, it hurts a lot more. We were just there. We were in the Peach Bowl. It's been now 3 years or whatever.
Yeah.
But a lack of a kicker has really been the kicker for this team.
Interesting. Well, I see what you did there.
Mm-hmm. You can lower that.
I will. And even if you think about that missed kick in the Peach Bowl against Georgia a couple of years ago, it was about personnel. That was not Ohio State's only option to take that kick.
That's what I don't understand.
And that's the situation that this team is in. And we haven't really broached it as much. There was a bounce back. Jaden Fielding missed a couple kicks in the middle of the season.
He missed a kick against Michigan.
Was largely solid down the stretch.
Last year, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Like pretty good down the stretch this year. Had some moments that he could, felt like maybe he got the pressure off in the big house this year. But Ohio State brought in a scholarship kicker, from Ball State, Jackson Corville. We've not asked, what is the week-to-week competition like? Has it ever been close? Have you thought about making a change? That's one of the questions that I think now has to come to the forefront moving forward. It's not, you can say, well, it shouldn't come down to that. Ohio State's so good on offense and the defense is elite. But when you're playing good teams, you're going to have to convert, and you can't have multiple drives into the red zone where you get nothing out of it. And yes, that last kick was to tie the game. I think I probably would have been more than okay with especially given the relative lack of stakes for the college football playoff, if Ryan Day had gone for 4th and 1 from the 9 instead of trying to tie that game up. I don't think anybody would have wanted to see an overtime in a game that truly didn't matter in the national landscape of things. But
the overtime is a concerning scenario for Ohio State right now, because overtime is Ohio State's greatest strength and their greatest weakness. Because the defense, I mean,
they don't get to drive down to the
20-yard line is where things get, locked down. And the offense, they can get to the 20-yard line, but they can't get in. I mean, that would be...
what a fascinating juxtaposition.
It'd be crazy. And then you need the field goal kicker to win the game, and it's just a whole... Yeah. Don't hope for overtime in these.
Hope's not a strategy.
No.
You know what it is, though, Adam?
What?
I know this stat. It'll make you feel better.
Okay.
In the 12-team playoff era, teams that lost their last game before the playoff, 13-10, have never not won the national championship. So file that away.
In the 12-team college football playoff, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Teams that wear scarlet are undefeated.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Both of those things point to Ohio State winning the national championship.
And only teams that with the letter O have won.
Jeez, this is getting deep.
I mean, you might as well just push it all in.
If you have Will Howard, even better.
Sidebar, and we can talk about this, and it's true. Well, I will say, nobody's ever won a game in the college football playoff without Will Howard. So this is going to be very interesting. It's in the 12-team playoff era. We'll talk a lot about this on Talking Tuesday. We have a lot of work to do here.
We do.
Over the next 25 days. But how did they play this? You asked this question. I thought it was a great question at the Sunday presser. I don't think we got the exact answer that we wanted.
Yeah.
But how does this look? How do you balance Miami versus Texas A&M? What does the film look like? Is this full focus on yourselves? I thought that's kind of what you were asking him. He didn't really dive into that too much, but
that's fine.
This is interesting. In the history of Ohio State football, there has never been a time where they knew they were going to play a game and didn't know the opponent.
Here we go.
Here we go.
What a fun month it's going to be.
What a fun month.
It will be New Year's Eve in the Cotton Bowl. Yeah. A tradition unlike any other is for the Ohio State program and beat to head down to Texas.
They played New Year's Eve.
I've got the scars to prove it.
That's right. Austin fell on his knee.
Excuse me?
Austin fell on his knee.
I did what now?
He fell on his knee last
You can keep saying that. It won't make it true.
It's the facts of the facts.
Oh, my goodness. Well, that will be a different episode, probably a bonus version.
You shouldn't have tripped. You should have looked out.
Stop. Hey, you need to look in the mirror, man. All right?
I mean, you got to watch where you're walking when you're on concrete. It can be dangerous.
That's true. I do need to watch. And I needed someone else to check my 6.
Yeah, that's right. You got to make sure nobody's coming.
Gets really problematic. That's a story for another day. We are out of time with television's Adam King on the beat for this week. It is Talking Tuesday. It is brought to you by the Waterworks. We appreciate you joining us on 97.1 The Fan or 10 TV's YouTube or 10 TV Plus, or if you just wanted to listen and not look at Adam King moving around.
I feel like I locked in. Hold on.
There he goes.
Here we go. Coming next week.
And there he goes.
Thanks for watching.
I'll put him in a chair. Maybe that'll help. We'll build a studio, and there will be a seatbelt on. He's going to that chair's not. We'll get a different chair for Adam King, one that doesn't shrink.
Berm's going to be so mad because this is going to be cropped on my head at the bottom. Sorry, Berm.
Thanks for joining us again. No Tuesday press conference with Ryan Day, so no snap judgments coming later today, but there will still be a lot more coverage coming all week long, as always, on the Austin and Berm Show. He is Adam King of 10 TV. I'm Austin Ward. We'll talk to you later.